The ongoing conflict in Syria. In just the past 24 to 36 hours, we've had a bombing and the killing of 62 Syrian army personnel. This done by that of the American military. Bringing in Dr. Bouthaina Shaaban, now political and media advisor to the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Thank you very much for joining us on RT International today. You may have just heard me referring to this American bombing campaign in Deir ez-Zor, killing 62 members of the Syrian military. The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Samantha Power, says Russia is behaving in a cynical and hypocritical manner for calling an emergency UN Security Council meeting. Is Russia being cynical and hypocritical?
I think what Washington did and what the United States did in Deir ez-Zor is really disgraceful, because it was these men from the Syrian Arab Army who were fighting Daesh and who were keeping over 300,000 civilians safe from Daesh and from the terrorists in Daesh. And I listened to what Samantha Powell says. I think she should think that what is happening in Syria is very, very different from what she thinks. And I think she should at least have the humility to think of the people and who lost their lives, and at least the honesty that if they are fighting terrorism, they should be absolutely ashamed of what happened in Deir ez-Zor.
Now, Dr. Shaaban, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Samantha Power, is calling it an honest mistake. Your thoughts?
I think, it would be very strange if a country like the United States of America, who is supposed to be #1 in military power in the world, to make such a mistake, to kill tens of people in a mistake. And the other thing is that I don't know whether your honorable viewers know the scene. The Syrian army was over a few hills, and the American strike with more than one plane came over all these hills. And the moment the American planes struck the Syrian army, the terrorists came from the same side that the Americans struck and occupied the place what the Syrian army was in. So there was obvious to anyone in the field that there is an absolute coordination between the planes, the American planes who shelled the Syrian army, and between the terrorists who came in the place of the Syrian army.
All right, Dr. Shaaban, if I can just jump in here quickly, because I just want to shed some more light on the information that you're giving us here on RT International. The 4 American warplanes, they flew in from Iraq. They conducted 4 bombing campaigns during which Russian military officials are saying, stop doing this, you're bombing civilians. And when the American warplanes turned to leave, ISIL, terrorists, paid mercenaries, whatever you want to call them, made an immediate offensive move. And you're saying that's a clear case of coordination between the Pentagon and the militants.
Well, I'm saying to you what our army officers saw. Why, when Daesh occupied the field where the Syrian soldiers were, why did the American planes stop shelling Daesh? This is the question. Why didn't they continue shelling Daesh? They only shelled the Syrian Arab Army and the soldiers, and when the terrorists occupied the field, they stopped shelling. If there is more than one authority in the United States, I don't know. Our impression was that the White House was embarrassed, but the Pentagon wasn't. I don't know.
Dr. Shaaban, if I can just jump in quickly, because I've got such little time and I must ask you more questions. Forgive me for jumping in, please. This shaky ceasefire, the truce that is supposed to be in effect, the Russian army keeps saying every time there's a ceasefire in Syria, it only serves jihadists or militants to regroup and rearm. Do you agree? That's
true, that the terrorists regroup and they rearm with every truce and with every cancellation of hostilities, unfortunately. And that's because the United States is hesitant to strike at the terrorists in Syria.
Dr. Shaaban, another question for you, please. Here on RT International, a few days ago, we were showing footage of American commandos fleeing a Syrian city, essentially being thrown out by rebels who are backed by the Pentagon. The rebels were calling the American commandos infidels and pigs and to get out of Syria. If that's the case, why would American-backed rebels be turning against America?
Those rebels who stood against America are different from Daesh, who is in Deir ez-Zor. There are many people in the field in Syria. The nationalistic people, the real Syrian people are the ones who would not accept the occupation from any country. So the fact that there are some rebels who kicked the American forces out doesn't mean that the United States does not coordinate with others in other fields, in other places.
All right, well, and one more question for you before I let you go, Dr. Shaaban. There was an interesting news article on the website inspiretochangeworld.com by a German news outlet that actually said the war in Syria has nothing to do with terrorism. It's about energy. It's about the future of gas pipelines. And the author also said that main flashpoints in Syria happen where pipelines are or where pipelines will be, and the flashpoint of Aleppo is the last city in Syria where the country's main pipeline goes through. Your thoughts on that?
I read that article that you referred to, and that happened, he said, since 2009, when they wanted the Qatari line to come through Syria into Turkey and Europe, and the Syrian president wanted the Russian line to come, and I think this is probably one of the reasons. One thing for sure is all the war on Syria has nothing to do with freedom or human rights or the interest of the Syrian people. It is absolutely against the interest of the Syrian people, and it's only Russia and Iran who are standing solidly with the Syrian army against terrorists, while the coalition led by the United States did not strike at terrorists and at their convoy and at their bases in Syria.
Dr. Bouthaina Shaaban, a political and media advisor to the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.